What's up, Gear Mortals? Trey Xavier here. On today's edition of Gear God's Quality Control, we're going to be taking a look at the Microtubes X7 from Darkglass. Today I'm playing my brand new Kiesel JB multi-scale 5-string bass. It is real sick. I'm going straight from the bass into the Darkglass with my HOSA cable, straight into my Universal Audio Apollo Quad Mark II. There's no post-processing, no plugins, nothing. All you're hearing is the sound of the bass into the pedal, period. Here's what the DI bass sounds like all by itself. Sounds fine, but nothing special. So if I turn it on with everything pretty much at nominal, here's what it sounds like. There's a ton going on in this one little pedal. It's pretty much everything you need to get a crushing metal bass tone in one pedal. We've got a high and low pass and a 4-band EQ, master output, a compressor for just the low end. Praise be to you handsome Finnish bastards for doing this. A low level and high level, which is going to balance the high and low signals that are determined by the high and low pass, and then a drive for just the high end. Once again, thank you forever. This is super awesome. So what is it that we can do with this pedal that you can't do with any of the other Darkglass pedals? Well, what we have here is essentially a parallel processing, sort of parallel distortion sound that you would do like in the studio, but now you can do it just in this one box. And the way that that works is that using these two knobs, we're going to set what the low and what the high sounds are. And then we've got a low level and high level. And wherever we set the pass, that's where it's going to split it into these two and these two sets of knobs. So the low comp is the compressor for just the low end. High drive is just the distortion sound for the high end. So you don't get any compression in the high end, of course, aside from the fact that distortion just is compression to a certain extent. And then the low sound is getting no distortion at all, but all the compression. That is slick as fuck. So let's see what this puppy can do. So what we're gonna do is set the low pass down a bit and the high pass up a little bit. So that'll give us a little bit of separation between these two, which means that we can turn on the compressor for the low end and put some distortion on the high end. Hear what that sounds like, just that much. Hot damn. Right off the bat, with very minimal effort, a pretty sick parallel distortion sound. Feeling like we need a little bit more high end and a little less low end. Crank up the compressor a little bit and sort of separate them out a little bit more. Woo-hoo-hoo! So what we've got now is some real clear separation between the low and high end. And the low end is fat and compressed, and the high end is nice and clanky. Now, if this is not enough distortion, you can, of course, continue to add more. And then sometimes what I like to do is have a lot of distortion, but just on a very narrow band of the high end. That is a smokin' bass tone, once again, with very little effort. Let's high pass it even a little bit further. Gives it that little bit of clank without just too much grind. Depending on the style of music, of course, that you're playing, you're gonna want more or less distortion and, you know, maybe more low end. Crank up the low end just a smidgen. Take the high level down even a little bit more. See, this way it's got some real nice zing to it. Still a lot of fat low end. It's not too clanky. What are these words that I'm using? You can kind of hear as we get lower and we're distorting a greater bandwidth of the high end, there's a point at which we start to encroach on sort of fuzzy territory, which maybe is what you're looking for. I like to keep them really clean and separated, but you know, that's why it's a knob and not a single setting. You can set it wherever you prefer it. You can really hear the difference in the low pass when you start to turn it up, because what ends up happening is now we're including more of those mid-range frequencies in the signal. So here it is all the way down. We go sort of in the middle. And then all the way up. Lots of different sounds in even just this one knob. I'm personally not that big of a fan of a lot of mid-range in my bass tone. I really feel like it kind of muddies up the mix a little bit and clashes with the guitar sometimes, and sounds a little, I don't know, kind of honky, which is not something that I want out of the bass. So I'm going to turn it down, I don't know, maybe like 2/3 of the way, and then have the high pass up pretty high. So this is about where I would set it. I've got the low pass knob about in the middle, and then the high pass knob up pretty high, and the distortion is all the way up. The high level is slightly higher than the low level. The low comp is cranked. And we haven't even touched the 4-band EQ yet. So very powerful pedal. Insane that it sounds this good with this little effort. All right, now let's check out the 4-band EQ. First of all, we've got the master slider. This is actually your master output volume. Then we've got this low shelf. We can use it to take out a lot of the low end if it's too boomy. Or if it's not boomy enough, you can boost it a little bit. Makes it really fat. Then we've got the 500 hertz. This is like your mid-range slider, basically. You got to be a little bit careful when scooping the mids. You can lose a lot of definition in your bass notes if you don't have enough of this 500 hertz, but too much of it and it can sound very rubbery to me. Now let's check out the 1K slider. Here's what it sounds like with all the way down. Gets pretty ear-piercing pretty quick if you crank it up too much. Then we've got this high shelf part of the EQ. If your bass is just too bright, you're going to want to pull that down a little bit. Or if it's too dull, maybe you haven't changed your strings in a week and you're on tour and you just need a little bit of extra zing. These strings are brand new, so it's a little bit brighter than it might be in that scenario. or if you just want to emphasize the sort of clanky, distorted sound a little bit. I'm going to set this up for the kind of sound that I like. Take the mids down a scotch, a little bit of extra low end. And that 1K. Now, of course, the sound you use is going to depend drastically on the style of music that you're playing and the kind of mix that you're going for. This is like approximately where I would put it if I was playing bass in my metal band. Savage. I can hear dogs barking in the distance because of this. Other features of the Microtubes X7 are that it has 3 outputs, a DI out that's XLR, a regular old output that's a 1/4 inch, and then a parallel output, which is essentially a pass-through for your bass signal. It's just gonna put through the exact tone that's going in without coloring it at all. So you can do like even more parallel processing if you want. That's real sick. It is incredibly helpful to have these kinds of ins and outs because you can go straight out to front of house via XLR with a direct output. You can use the regular 1/4 inch output to go straight to your amp. Then you can have the parallel out going out to some other effect where you want to hear just the clean bass going into that effect and then hearing them at the same time. There's also a ground lift switch in case you get to the venue and there's some kind of weird ground loop going on, you're getting some bad buzz. And it's just a regular old 9 volts center negative pedal power type of plug to power the thing. There you have it, folks, the incredible Microtubes X7 from Darkglass. As far as I'm concerned, this is the crown jewel in the Darkglass lineup. They make a ton of incredible shit, and this is the friggin' pinnacle of everything that they've done as far as I'm concerned. It's the best bass tone I've ever gotten out of a single pedal. I am absolutely blown away by what this pedal is capable of, and I am just so glad that this exists. If you're a bass player, you could go out on the road with a metal band with just this and a tuner and absolutely crush most other bands' bass tones. No problem. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Big thanks to Hosa for setting us up with all the cables for this and all our upcoming pedal demos. If you're interested in some behind-the-scenes stuff, raw mix tracks for all my demo songs, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff, you're going to want to sign up for our Patreon, which is right here. Just go ahead and click that to head over and find out more. And I'll see you guys real soon.